My name is Matt, and I review retro games. Like anyone who's into gaming on YouTube, I'm a huge fan of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he's one of my biggest influences. But unlike a number of his audience, I enjoy most of those turds he rips apart, and that's why I now don the moniker of the LJN Defender! Welcome to the LJN Defender Championship Federation League free preview event! Mad Ezro here in the 16-bit Rainbow Arena to bring you the best in wrestling entertainment. We've got a great show planned for you tonight representing the golden age of early 90s WWF. Without further delay, let's head ringside for the first match. Super Wrestlemania came out in February 1992 and was developed, as with the rest of the trilogy, by Sculptured Software. Starting off with a very nice animated LJN logo, followed shortly after with the Hulkster and iconic shirt-ripping pose on the title screen, Super Wrestlemania wastes no time in getting the player pumped up for the ruckus ahead. Being that this is the first game in the franchise during the 4th generation, it has the least options of the three, with the choice of one-on-one, tag team, or Survivor Series. It also has the fewest difficulty settings, with just easy, medium, and hard, and the smallest roster. The roster consists of the expected superstars of the era, with a few oddball choices thrown in. The lineup is Macho Man Randy Savage, The Undertaker, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hulk Hogan, Hawk, Earthquake, Animal, Typhoon, Ted DiBiase, and Sid Justice. With a few notable exceptions, this was every early 90s WWF fan's dream in a cartridge. The character select screen is accompanied with renditions of each star's theme song, and they all sound glorious on the SNES sound chip. Once the match is set up, Mean Gene introduces the athletes, providing added authenticity and making the player feel like they're participating in an actual pay-per-view. Graphically, all things considered, Super Wrestlemania is fantastic! The sprites accurately depict the wrestlers they're representing, and the arena and its audience are simple yet appropriate. They even included Bobby the Brain Heenan as the commentator in the background. It's little touches like that which show Sculptured Software's attention to detail, and I applaud them highly for it. With all of that said, this initial offering isn't as smooth as its descendants, and the animation can get downright choppy at times. But it's more than made up for with the sweet wrasslin' herein. Clotheslines, headbutts, body slams, all present in Super Wrestlemania. The controls are fairly straightforward, and by and large remain consistent throughout this multi-review. Y runs, A kicks, and B punches. X initiates a grapple, and this is where the majority of the traditional moves are performed. In order to win the grapple, press any of the 4 main buttons repeatedly until one of the signature moves is activated. The button that is mashed will determine which move is accomplished. For example, mashing Y will result in an Irish whip, and pressing X repeatedly will end in a suplex. Track and field veterans should be well prepared for what Super Wrestlemania has to offer. For others, the constant barrage will prove to be quite fatiguing on one's digits, so it's best to build up strength by starting out on a lower difficulty. The grappling plays into the controls when the characters are standing, but the functions switch when the situation changes. When the opponent is on the mat, X will begin a pin, A stomps, B leg drops, etc. Not to mention ascending and leaping from the turnbuckles, which involves pressing the D-pad in the appropriate direction and A, B, X, or Y to bring the hammer down on the helpless prey. As for the different play modes, they're pretty self-explanatory. Tag Team pits one dynamic duo against another. The moveset is nearly identical to that of the one-on-one mode, except that pressing A near the other competitor will tag them in. This can obviously be done at any time, but it's best to wait until the life bar in the first partner is almost extinguished. If the opponent attempts a pin, the idle NPCs will come into the ring in order to stop the countdown. At this point, the computer becomes playable, which is pretty cool, but getting carried away can easily result in a loss of the match. The Survivor Series mode, much like its namesake pay-per-view event, features 4-on-4 tag team action. It's really no different from the regular tag team mode, except that all of the partners have to be pinned out, and the select button is used to switch between who is waiting in the wings. That about sums up all of what Super Wrestlemania has to offer. It may be basic as a single-player experience, with limited replayability, but the co-op is a whole other story. Super Wrestlemania is a solid early WWF title that provided the template for many future installments.
Wow! What a contender! That will be a tough act to follow. But the Super Wrestlemania story isn't over yet. With more on this interesting development, we now take you to our correspondent backstage. Thanks, Mad Matt. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the majority of licensed games, of which Super Wrestlemania and its siblings belong, were and continue to be released on all the current consoles of the day. I put the focus on the Super Nintendo versions as those were the only ones to feature the rainbow on the cart, whereas they were published by Acclaim and their Flying Edge subsidiary on the Genesis. However, in spite of the different logos on the boxes, the truth of the matter is that they were all put out by the same parent company. Much like Konami distributed games under the Ultra imprint, so too did Acclaim purchase LJN in 1990 in order to get past the limitation on yearly releases for the NES, and this continued into the 16-bit era. Now, with a few exceptions, the majority of licensed games on both consoles, with minor graphical and audio differences, were virtually identical. Surely the WWF titles would conform to the normal practice of the time, right? Wrong. There are some pretty big differences.
In the case of Super Wrestlemania, the Genesis has a WWF Championship mode that is completely absent from the Super Nintendo. It basically functions as a story mode similar to those featured in Mortal Kombat. The aspiring athlete takes on the rest of the superstars in order to obtain the championship belt. If successful, all that is awarded is a single screen with the belt and wrestler proclaiming them the new champion, followed by credits. It's nothing special, but it does help flesh out the lacking single-player experience on the SNES. Another difference that I don't have specific footage of is that the Genesis supposedly incorporates signature special moves for each individual. I found out about this after I captured my footage of the Genesis Super Wrestlemania, so I can't show specific examples. The last difference I'm going to mention, and perhaps the most important of all, is the differences in the roster. To start off, the roster is actually 8 wrestlers, not 10. Included in the Genesis from the Super Nintendo are Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, and the $1 Million Man. Filling out the roster are Papa Shango, Irwin R. Shyster, British Bulldog, Shawn Michaels, and the Ultimate Warrior!
That's right, the Ultimate Mother Warrior! Anything with the Ultimate Warrior in it is automatically the coolest thing ever, so the winner in this rivalry, as if there was ever any doubt, is the Genesis. Back to you, Mad Matt. What an upset! Genesis really does what Nintendo don't! The Ultimate Warrior single-handedly snuck in at the finish to take the belt! Nobody saw that coming! This is pro wrestling at its finest, lovely audience. Oh, it looks like match number 2 is getting underway, but it has very big boots to fill.
A little over a year later, in June 1993, saw the second installment in the LJN 16-bit trilogy, Royal Rumble, hit store shelves. It took everything that was great about its predecessor, but added to and improved upon it. Besides the standard one-on-one and tag team modes, the titular pay-per-view event is added, as well as a triple tag team option. On top of that, the returning modes offer more bang for the buck, with the inclusion of Brawl, where the referee is absent and anything goes, as well as Tournament, which is similar to the championship setting from the Genesis Super Wrestlemania. Besides the omission of Hulk Hogan, the roster is much more focused on fan favorites this time. Carried over from Super WrestleMania are The Undertaker, Macho Man, and Ted DiBiase. New additions are Tatanka, Crush, The Narcissist / Lex Luger, Yokozuna, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair, and personal favorite, Razor Ramon. Like I said, very fan-friendly. Like with Super WrestleMania, all of the signature themes are featured and they sound great! Sadly missing from Royal Rumble are the pre-match introductions from Mean Gene, replaced with a stock image with no flair. Though it does have plenty of Ric Flair, who looks hopped up on goofballs and or on a homicidal rampage. Every man's nightmare indeed. The overall presentation is the same as Super WrestleMania, but with a new coat of polish. The main controls and the grappling mechanic remain intact, only this time there's a bar that shows the progress, which is a nice addition. The easy, medium, hard setting is replaced with a 1 to 10 scale, but it seems no different than that of the initial entry. The biggest addition to the usual one-on-one or tag modes is the inclusion of finishers, which are unique to each character, such as the Razor's Edge. The finishers are fairly easy to pull off, involving some variation of pressing R when an opponent is on the ground or groggy. My personal favorite new feature is the Brawl mode, where there are no rules, and if someone wants to stay on the outside of the ring and bash their opponent in the skull with a steel chair, they can do so to their heart's content. Or until the life bar's emptied. Illegal moves such as the eye gouge and choke are unlocked, which are performed via the L and R buttons respectively. Of course, these are available in the regular matches, but only after the referee is knocked out cold. You know what? I take it back. This is much more fun. Yeah, take that, you stupid ref. Trying to tell me what I can and can't do? I won't have it! If only I could choke right now, you'd be Wayne Brady quicker than the brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. As for the other new modes, the triple tag team is similar to the Survivor Series setting of the first one, with 2 teams of 3 members duking it out to see who's the victor, and select again being used to cycle through the partners, but the triple tag team differs in that only 1 pin is needed for victory. The Royal Rumble itself should need no description for even novice WWF or WWE enthusiasts, but for those who are unaware, the match begins with 2 athletes in the ring at the start, and as it progresses, more juggernauts pile in, with 6 being the max at one time. The goal is simple: toss out all of the opponents. This is accomplished via the grapple into the Irish Whip. If done at the right time, when the opponent is fatigued and near the ropes, the winner of the grapple will toss the loser over the ropes and outside the ring. With a 12-person roster, winning the Rumble in the game is a lot easier than doing so in the typically 30-person Royal Rumble pay-per-views, but I still felt accomplished when I lasted until the end to throw out the last man. That pretty much sums up SNES Royal Rumble. As for the Genesis differences, the only ones that I noticed are in the roster. Both the Super Nintendo and Genesis have 12-man rosters, but they only share Macho Man, Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Bret Hart, and The Undertaker in common. The rest of the Genesis roster is IRS, Papa Shango, The Model, Crush, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and the one and only Hulk Hogan.
I may be a Genesis guy, but in the battle between the 2 consoles on Royal Rumble, I've got to go with the Super Nintendo. All of the other features are exactly the same, but I just prefer the SNES's roster. Sorry, Hulkster. Well, what do you know? Royal Rumble had quite a few tricks up its sleeve after all. In spite of lacking any warrior spirit, this newcomer put on quite a show. Give it up for Royal Rumble, ladies and gentlemen! We still got one more fight lined up for you tonight, and it makes for quite an explosive finale. I now give to you WWF Raw!
About a year and a half after Royal Rumble in December of 1994, came the last of the LJN published trilogy, named after the USA Network Monday Night Show. Once again, it's another case of sticking with the winning formula, but adding further to it. The modes featured are a combination of the two predecessors, with the standard one-on-one, tag team, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble returning, but with two brand new options, Bedlam and Raw Endurance Match. Bedlam is all four wrestlers in the ring simultaneously. The referee is present, but again, all it takes is a good punch to the chops for some chokehold fun. The Raw Endurance Match is a lot like Survivor Series, with 6 characters on each side. The difference is that there are no tags, and the next partner only comes in when the previous one is pinned. After 6 pins, the match is over. Raw retains the look and style of its kin, but it feels faster paced to me. The controls are largely the same, with grappling being as important as ever and finishers being retained from the Royal Rumble. The most groundbreaking inclusion was the support, via the appropriate accessory, of 4-player Mayhem, paving the way for the WCW titles of the next generation. I can't show you footage of this since I don't own a multi-tap. Just imagine that all 4 characters on the screen are being controlled by me and 3 other people. The roster this time around consists of Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow, Razor Ramon, Lex Luger, Doink, Shawn Michaels, 123 Kid, Diesel, Owen Hart, and Luna Vachon, the first female to be featured in a WWF game. If I could sum up Raw in one word, it would be extreme. Besides the new options and the extra arsenal around the ring, the difficulty took a noticeable spike. The preset level is much tougher than the default on the previous releases. At 5 on Royal Rumble, I was able to get through the titular event without breaking a sweat. At 5 on Raw, I was barely able to progress in the tournament. It doesn't help that the AI is much smarter than the previous 2, and they're always moving around the ring and hard to confront. I decided to crank it up to 10 for a laugh, and I got my ass handed to me in less than 2 minutes! Once I tucked away my pride and notched down to 3, Raw became easier, but retained quite a challenge. Good luck to those who want to finish the tournament, as its difficulty is unchangeable. The last major addition left to address are the Mega Moves. Like the finishers, each character has their own individual Mega Moves, but they aren't simple press R when an opponent is on the ground operations. The Mega Moves involve a sequence of button combinations akin to a Mortal Kombat fatality. I'm by no means a fighting game whiz, but I was able to pull off a few of these. With the assistance of a FAQ. They're completely silly and feel more cartoonish than reality, but it's cool to see Owen Hart whirl around the ring like a tornado or Bam Bam Psycho Crusher from side to side. I've never seen that on SmackDown.
WWF Raw took everything that was great about its older brothers and combined it into one awesome cartridge, then twisted the dial to 11. The only thing keeping Raw from being the perfect wrestling game is the exclusion of the Ultimate Warrior. Yes, I know, he wasn't affiliated with the company at the time, but still, that would have been amazing. As for the Genesis differences, well, as far as I can tell, there are none. This is the first and only time that the rosters were the same on both consoles, so the whole Raw experience is offered either way. As far as the overall winner between all 6 competitors, the only way to determine that is in a no-holds-barred free-for-all! have it, folks. Despite tough early competition, the young upstart rises above an insurmountable odds to claim the belt. Bravo, WWF Raw. What an amazing performance. You only get excitement like that on the LJN Defender Championship Federation League free preview extravaganza. This is Mad Israel signing off until next time when the veteran Cygnus Destroyer takes to the mean streets to tackle one of his favorite franchises on the Sega Genesis. See you there for plenty of brawling action. Good night.